Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I have been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap: Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. This is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio. And I hope you can hear me. I'm not hearing myself in this. Yeah. Well, anyway, this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And the show is on WPKN, 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, Connecticut. This is going to be the last time I'm doing this at the studio. And I'm hoping that what you can hear is working and you're listening. You also get the chance to call in today. Again, this is the last time to call into the WPKN studio that I'm here. It's going to be a few more weeks, but I don't come back until October. I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of the month from 12 to 1 p.m. And I hope that you're able to enjoy a really good couple of weeks after I leave today. But in case you've been waiting to talk to me, let me see if I can figure out how to put this on here. No, here. Well, I don't know. I hope this is working. If this is working, give me a call, 203-336-9756, so I know it's working. I can talk to you. If you're wondering about what the show is about, if you're a new listener, it's about people calling in who have had challenges in their experience recent times, and they're not certain how to proceed, and some decisions they have to make going forward. Those decisions have to do with possibly being involved with family concerns or perhaps work-related matters. In any case, this is a chance to give me a call and see if I can help you deal with whatever emotions might be underlying those situations. And since I'm not hearing myself with these headphones, I'm not certain why this isn't working. And trying to figure that out. Nothing. These are working for you, right? Mm-hmm. Huh. What could I have pressed? Oh, that seems to work. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Messiah. Okay. I would bless one to see each other again. Thanks. All right. So this is an inauspicious beginning, but fortunately, Messiah was able to figure it out. So, all right. Thanks a lot. And thank you all for tuning in. Those of you who are new listeners, I want to welcome you to the show. The show's called The Emotion Roadmap: Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. And those of you who are regular listeners and have listened for, either recent years or the last 12 years. This is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to The Emotion Roadmap: Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. Now, having said that, one of the things that I'd encourage you to think about is simply this. When you are looking at your life and you are considering the situations that you face on a day-to-day basis, or maybe it's something that's been ongoing for a while, or something that's new to you, that is challenging you in some way, shape, or form, where you are wondering what to do next, and you're concerned about how to proceed, and you're worried about escalation and perhaps this conflict involved, and there's challenges that you have to take on, but you aren't certain what the outcome will be, and you're not certain what the right move to make is or what decision to choose. There's lots of different kinds of choices that we make in life. Sometimes we choose between two very good choices, sometimes between the lesser of the evils. Sometimes it's just choices that we don't know if they're going to be good or bad, but we know we got to choose. And when we're not sure what the outcome's going to be, we sometimes get stuck. And when smart people are stuck, I find it's pretty often that something emotional is happening either inside them or with somebody that they're dealing with that's important to whatever they're trying to get done. So having said that, and for those of you that are regular listeners to the show, I encourage you to call in. This is, again, my last time in this studio at the University of Bridgeport. The move is going to be made in the next few weeks, I believe. So, I might have one more time here in case things get backed up a bit. But this is probably my last visit here. So I'm kind of sentimental about this. Hope that you have the time to call in and the interest to call in, and we get a chance to talk today. Again, the number is 203-336-9756. And in this studio that I've been in for a lot of years now, on occasion the phones don't work, but they seem to be working fine today. So again, the number to call is 203-336-9756. I always come in with a few stories to share because you never know when somebody's going to call or even if somebody's going to call. So I like to be able to take the time to kind of share with you some interesting and uplifting stories if I can. And so let me share a few with you as I'm waiting to see if anybody wants to call. So first off, let me just say that I'd like to share a story about what's happening in Afghanistan today. I don't like to be political, but once in a while there's something that happens in the political world that I think is worth taking note of and sharing. Sometimes it's something I'm not pleased with, but this is very pleasing. And again, I think it's uplifting. And that is that we've got people who are have been to Afghanistan, who are independent of our government, many of whom are veterans, a lot of whom have served in Afghanistan, and are trying as best they can to help other people who have been left behind get out. And there's lots of stories about them being successful in helping people who did not get on the United States government planes, but were able to somehow get out of the country and get to safety. And I just want to applaud and thank all those people who are spending time really working hard to help people get out. I also want to give a shout out to Senator Blumenthal, who is really concerned with our administration, the executive branch, and he is pushing as hard as he can to make sure that we go back in and get everybody out that deserves to be taken out. And kudos to Senator Blumenthal for standing up for that. So that's something I'm pleased about, and I hope you are too. And I just want to say that that's probably the last I'm going to share. But if you have stories or you know of people who have helped people get out of Afghanistan, or if you're involved in helping people get resettled and you want to share that story, give me a call today, 203-336-9756. Another story I'd like to share with you that has a tiny bit of a relationship to that is something that I noticed on LinkedIn today. I have a friend. He's actually he was a lord. He's an English lord, actually, and he's someone that I've gotten to know over the years. And I don't know him well. I actually knew his wife pretty well. We worked together for a couple of years, but I do know him. And his name is John Biddleson. And John wrote something in a LinkedIn today that I happened to read. I thought it was really interesting. I thought I'd share it with you. And it also relates, I'm going to tie these stories back together, but it also relates to what I think is emotionally intelligent behavior, and that I want to share with you because I think it's uplifting as well. So what I read today that John was sharing was that, you know, when he was raising his children, he had 5 children, and when he was raising them, he was asked by a number of people at different times, you know, what do you hope for your kids? And he said things, the typical things that most people were expecting. He wrote was like, well, I want them to be healthy, wealthy, wise. He wants them to be very successful in life, hold good jobs, live a nice life, live in a nice place. And he said, all those things, of course, are important. But he said, the one thing I always wanted from my children was that they be sensitive. sensitive to others, sensitive to the needs of those around them, sensitive to the needs of those needy, very needy in the world. And I thought that was a lovely thing to say. And it made me think about, what did I want for my children? And as I thought about it, I thought, well, one of the things I wanted for my children, first of all, I have 3 daughters, and one of the things that I cared deeply about was that they all have high self-esteem. I wanted them all to feel really good about themselves. And then I wanted them to care about family. I wanted family to be at the top of a list of what's important to them, because I always felt family was really critically important, and it was really something to emphasize to my children. Not just their own families that they were going to raise later, but with each other, with each other as siblings, with us as parents, and with cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents and all that goes with that. So I always wanted them to really care about them, and also then to be kind and respectful to others and be supportive where they could for anyone in need. And I want to say I'm so proud of my children, because they are all 3 daughters are doing a lot of things, I believe, that make the world a better place. And I wanted to share that story with you too, because again, John's memo made me think, a memo that he wrote, or blog post, I guess, on LinkedIn, made me think about, what do I want for my children? So if you've thought about what you want for your children, you may want to call and share that. It'd be nice to hear as well. 203-336-9756. And then I wanted to make the case that, at least in one instance, one of my daughters, they're all doing really neat things, but one of my daughters actually has been involved, not just recently, but for the last couple of years, in helping the families of Afghanistan residents who have come to the United States. This is before the withdrawal in the last couple of months. This is just people who had their husbands typically killed as they were helping the United States Army, either as translators or in some other way, supporting our efforts to help them, live a full and decent life in Afghanistan. And so one of my daughters has been really helpful in organizing support, financial support, medical supplies, clothing, all kinds of things for people whose families had lost their dad, had lost their husbands, and had come over to the United States. And so she's been involved with that. And so that's something I'm very proud of as well. So I hope that you, in your own way, are doing what you can to make the world a better place. Because, it doesn't take a lot to show a bit of kindness to someone else. And that, to me, makes the world a better place. The show's the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I've been talking a little bit about family. I want to continue the thought about family a little bit, because I've had some interesting things happen. One of the nice things about continuing to work at this point in my life with my clients, I'm a leadership coach, if you don't know that. Have some expertise in this area called emotional intelligence. I've created this concept called an emotion roadmap, which is this idea that I have found a way to help anybody and everybody to deal more effectively with the emotions that they experience in life. A lot of us learn about emotional management through trial and error. And while there's more effort now in schools today, fortunately, that we're teaching more about social and emotional competencies, so people are learning more about this than we used to teach. But at the same time, I still think that a lot of us go out there, and even though we're learning more about it in our schools, when you actually have to deal with an emotionally challenging situation, there's still a lot of trial and error going on. But one of the things that I discovered as part of my efforts to work with the pioneers in the field was that you could actually look at emotions that are internal to you and look at the emotions that others are experiencing. And you can work to change them if you think that the emotions in play are not helpful. Now, every emotion is designed to inform us and to teach us about something that's impacting our life and possibly even our survival. Usually we're not in survival situations where what we choose to do is going to cause us to live or die. But we often are in situations where our feelings might be hurt, or we might hurt the feelings of somebody else. And then when we're in those kinds of situations, we sometimes are uncomfortable making decisions going forward about what's the right thing to do. And we often just do what we're going to do and live with the consequences and, use metaphors like, you got to play the cards you're dealt, or, it is what it is, and things like that. And yet I found that you can be better than that. You can actually learn how to control not only your own emotions, but you can influence the emotions of others. You can influence them for good or bad. I mean, you can be manipulative. If you've listened to my show, you know that certainly you could make the case that changing somebody else's emotions is a form of manipulation. And I've actually had this conversation many times with people I've been teaching about emotional intelligence, because they say, I don't know, changing somebody else's emotions seems wrong to me. Is that right? Well, what if you're trying to help an addict overcome their addiction? Does that seem wrong to you? What if you're trying to prevent your daughter or your son from making a big mistake that's going to have a tremendously negative impact on their life? Is that wrong to try to influence their emotions? See, I think our intentions around changing others' emotions are what causes us to think that we're doing something for the right reasons versus we're trying to manipulate somebody. I mean, we can certainly try to manipulate somebody if we're trying to sell them something that we know is damaged goods for way more than it's really worth, but we think we can convince them, not by lying necessarily, but just by emphasizing all the positives, even though we know what the value isn't there. So, I mean, that seems like more manipulation to me than influence. I've got my first caller. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please? Hello?
Hello.
Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hi, Chuck. This is Carla Miller.
Hi, Carla. Nice to talk with you.
Nice to talk to you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. And you're on the radio. You know that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been on with you a couple times before. And I just want to say how much I appreciate your roadmap, because when I learned of the roadmap, I was on a roller coaster. And you helped me to pin it down and make more of a blueprint out of it and assign different strategies along the way. And I just want to say thank you for your service in this country, and I'm so proud of your daughters, and try not to be on the roller coaster with the events of Texas. So I appreciate your service and look forward to continuing to grow and be on your roadmap.
Carla, I couldn't have gotten a nicer phone call. Thank you so much. It's really nice to reconnect, and nice to know that something that I said made a difference for you. It's really helpful to know that, one, there's people out there listening that are finding this valuable. And I went into this just in part because I wanted people who didn't know this existed or weren't able to pay for it, but were happened to be listening to this great radio station and happened to catch me one day, and then maybe it made a difference in your life. It's so great to hear that it did, and I really appreciate you calling in.
Thank you so much. And in relation to what you'd like your children to benefit from in this world, my children have listened to you too, so keep it growing.
I'm so pleased to hear that. It makes me want to come back and keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All
righty.
Bye-bye now. Okay, well, that made my day. Well, actually, my day was already made, but that made it even better. The reason it was made already is I had a conversation today with a woman that so I do leadership coaching in organizations, and I believe that these emotion roadmap is the concept of using this to manage your emotions and also to influence other people's emotions is their life skills. And so while I'm often hired by a workplace to help somebody who's having some difficulties in many different ways, so often with relationships, though, is part of it, if I can help you to understand what's going on internally inside you, and as Carla said, get you off the roller coaster and make life a little more stable for you. Although I got to say, I like roller coasters, so I'm not saying never go up and down emotionally, but I also like the stability that comes when you're not on the ride. So if things can be more predictable and if you have more control over things, I always think, if you've got a tough situation that you're facing and it's with another person or a group of people, some decisions, or maybe it's just an internal thing going on inside of you and you're not really grappling with anybody else, but you're just dealing with the different voices in your own head. And as you're struggling through that and you're trying to decide what's the right thing to do, I always think that if I stop and take a step back and I'm somewhat reflective and think about, wait a minute, what am I feeling? Is what I'm feeling like a lot of anxiety and making me, so anxious that I'm feeling almost paralyzed, mentally paralyzed? Am I feeling overwhelmed, unable to think for a minute because I got so many things that are pulling at me that I feel like I can't do any one thing because every time I start something, I think about all the other things I've got to do. So there's lots of times when we feel like our feelings are overwhelming us. So while the feelings are real and they're informing us about something, we need to take more control over them in order to move forward sometimes. And so I conceive of this idea that, well, if what I'm feeling isn't helpful at a particular point, if what I'm feeling isn't really helping me with what I'm trying to get done right now, what might be helpful? In fact, what would be ideal to feel? And if it's not just me, I'm dealing with other people, what would be ideal for me and for somebody else that I'm dealing with, right? And how can I make a difference? How can I, by thinking and planning and really focusing on what I am feeling and what I want to feel, and thinking about the different ways I might get from what I'm feeling to what I want and need to feel, what would be ideal to feel? And if I'm thinking and trying to change what somebody else is feeling, to influence somebody else's feelings to something that I think and believe would be helpful for them to feel, how do I do that? And as I think about the different possibilities for how I get that done, I go to the managing piece, which is, okay, I've got several strategies here that seem to be in play. Which one really is something I'm able to do? What am I really capable of doing? Are any of the ideas that I've had for managing my own emotions or others' emotions, are there any of these strategies I'm thinking about that are really possible for me to do? That's question one. And question two, am I willing? Am I really willing to do what needs to be done in order to make the changes? And I just think that if you plan emotionally what you want to have happen with a conversation or a decision or something that you're grappling with, that you're uncertain about and kind of stuck, when you emotionally plan how you want to feel for yourself and anyone else who's key that's involved, how can you not be better? How can you not be better by, instead of just hoping for the best and going into the situation kind of blind with knowing what you want for an outcome, but not anywhere near sure about how to get there? What if you stop and step back and you do some emotional planning? That's what the show's about, is teaching you how to do that. So I just wanted to share with you this story too. This is another family story I thought was really interesting. Oh, I got a call. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf, and you're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Paul.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for calling.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. I
Great.
really enjoy your show, and what you just outlined in the last 5 minutes is basically what I deal with on a daily basis, just being stuck, having so many things in front of me to do, and I don't know, I think I just get caught up in the emotional end of things, and I just seem to can't get anything done. And like you said, when you're working on one thing, you're thinking about all the other things that are not getting done at the time, and this has ramifications all through my life, from career-wise to just getting all the stuff done that I have in front of me.
Paul, let me see if I can help you then. And one of the things that I just like to ask you, because this is you're a long-time listener, so you know the process works like, okay, so how you feel and how do you want to feel? So we know you're feeling overwhelmed because that's what you reacted to, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
And so how do you want to feel?
And one of the things before I answer that,
Okay.
It really affects my decision making. It's hard for me to make decisions, I have confidence in my decisions, even though I'm very talented at many different things. And so how I want to feel is I want to feel like I'm in control of everything, and I can concentrate on one job and not be worrying about 10 other things that need to be done.
Okay, so you want to feel in control, or just confident in your ability to handle whatever comes.
Right.
Okay, so that's the first. That's the first step, right? What is it you're feeling, and what do you want to feel? But go ahead.
Right,
You have something else you want to say? Go ahead.
I understand, how this works. I've heard you explain it so many times, but just how do you just change your mind to say, okay, everything's going to be fine, and just how do you make that?
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if it was that easy, huh?
Yes.
You're right. Well, I mean, it's when I talk through this, it sounds pretty simple because it's just a series of questions, but it's not really simple to do at all. But what are the things that I found that helps, Paul? And you, as a listener, a regular listener, this is sort of how it works. Is if I find I'm talking to somebody like you who's got something that they're living with, and it's not a new problem, it's something they've experienced a lot, then the chances are that maybe you've had some wins over this, that there have been some times in your life where you felt like you did get control back, and you were able to kind of make yourself feel like, hey, you know what? I'm good right now. I'm good with one thing at a time. I know I got a lot of stuff, and I know it's all pulling at me, but I'm able to really gain some focus and just tackle one thing at a time. And when I ask you that question, maybe there's nothing you can recall, but if there is, sometimes that helps because it helps you to think, well, okay, it's not like I've never done this before. Was there something in the past that maybe I can make a regular part of what I do when this feeling starts to take over? So is there anything from your past, Paul, that you can think of where you ever felt like you did get control back?
That's hard to answer. When you say get control, where the feeling where I've made the right decision and carried a task out with no problems and was successful, that sort of thing, or
in part, that's part of it, yeah. But I guess it's not just the success you had, but the ability to push other things sort of to the peripheral part of your brain. Trying to push them to the side so that your clarity and your focus was really solid for a period of time.
Yeah, I think up until the last couple years, and I don't know if the whole COVID situation and feeling fearful all the time and unsure of the future, I don't know if that's had an effect on it, or for some reason I feel that it does.
Well, that's an interesting angle to explore. But think about before COVID then, and what was working for you in the past, if you can.
Well, I made a decision to switch careers, and it was a big leap of faith, and I worked really hard to get myself out of a business, in the construction business, and got into something where I used my degree and brain more than that, and it required a big step on my part, and everything was great, and I was successful. I made it through it, very stressful, and it's the kind of a job where you kind of work yourself out of a job until the next assignment. And so now I'm back. I went back into what I did before, and the job situation that I was in, the particular one I was in, I knew it was a bad fit, and I quit, and I've been taking time to get caught up with things around my property and that sort of thing. So that's probably when I felt good about things, and I feel like I'm regressing now.
So was there something that you can take from when before COVID, when you felt like you were able to isolate things, get things done, go out, work around your yard, just feel like you could do a number of things either simultaneously, or you could focus specifically on one thing till it was done, while those other things were still out there. You knew you had to get them done too, but you had that ability to just be mentally challenging yourself to be focused, and you did it. Was there anything that's you can take away, you think, that might have been happening in the past that you think might be something you could build on here?
Not really. I think what it is now I just worry any given situation, I seem to worry about the negative aspects of the outcomes instead of the positive ones.
So that's, it's almost like post-traumatic stress syndrome is how I think a lot of people are dealing with this COVID stuff, because yeah, I think in part because let's talk a little bit about that, because it sounds to me like that did have an impact on you, and the uncertainty that comes with, hey, are we done with this? No, we're not. Do we need 3 shots, 4 shots, do forever shots? I mean, there's a lot of people I think are feeling some of that same concern that you're experiencing. And so it complicates your ability to push that aside and deal with whatever's in front of you. So then the question becomes, does that sound right to you?
Yeah, and I think at this point I'm like over it. I can't let the hysteria and everything get to me. I'm trying to move on, but it seemed to have almost like it's permeated. Well, not permeated, but somehow it affects other things. But I'm not worrying about COVID. I'm just worrying about negative aspects of outcomes of, if I go to work for company A, am I making the right choice, or should I go for company B or C? It becomes very difficult to make these big decisions, and I can't figure it out.
So you're somebody in the past, Paul, that's been able to put down a balance sheet, pluses and minuses, debits, credits, all these things, and then come to a decision. That's worked for you in the past, but it's not working now.
Yeah.
And so you want to be able to go back there, and you want to see if somehow you can let go of the anxiousness or the anxiety tied up with this uncertainty and this doubt about what's going on in the world. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening in the world that are pretty crazy, honestly. So it isn't just COVID, but
Right.
but I think it comes down to something which is about what's going to cause me to have internal peace. And if I can have internal peace, and I feel like there's times where I can just catch myself and make myself relax a little bit, whether it's through breathing exercises or meditation or long walks or listening to music or all the typical things that people might do. But there's a way to try to make it happen that I think is not typical, that I'm going to at least suggest something to you. You open to an idea here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the things that I when I'm working with people, one of the ways I like to start is by encouraging people to diary at least 3 times a day, a check-in with themselves about how they're feeling. So if you decide, for instance, that, I mean, you made a call today and you're hoping that something I say is going to make you feel like, you know what, that sounds pretty good. Maybe I could do that and maybe that'll work. That's what you're hoping happens here.
And it's funny because I've been procrastinating on calling you for probably years now.
Okay. Well, but today you made the move. So something spurred that. So that means that maybe you're more ready than you were in the past.
Right. And, I think I can kind of parallel that because I procrastinate on a lot of things. And now it's got to the point where now I feel overwhelmed because I put too many little things off for too long, and now I feel like I can't catch up.
So today you decided to put a stake in the ground and said enough.
Right.
And enough, at least for me, again, this may not work for you, but I'm going to suggest it. One of the things that I find is really useful is that at the beginning of every day, most people have like sort of an idea of what they want to get done. Some people make a list, but other people at least know before the end of the day's out, there's some things I want to get done, right?
Yes.
And go ahead.
As a matter of fact, I do little lists like that all the time, and it feels like I never get through them. And today I wrote down one thing that I'm going to do today and be happy with that.
Okay. Well,
I
here's
don't know what you think about that approach, but
well, I think it's all part of your readiness for changing what's happening in your life, including the call today.
that's for sure.
Sometimes you can't really do something different until you're ready. And it seems to me there's a lot of parts of you that are ready. Now, by the way, just because you're ready doesn't mean it's going to change. It means that you're ready to fight with it and change it. But it's going to try and keep you from changing because old behaviors don't die easily. So let me suggest this, and I think this will help. If you diary like around 10:30 in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning, somewhere between 10 and 10:30, and about between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and around 7 o'clock at night, and what you want to diary, do you have like a smartphone or something?
Sure.
Yeah. So if you just put in an alarm for 3 times a day for the next 2 weeks, every day, and you ask yourself when the alarm buzzes you and it causes you to pay attention to what the alarm's about, what am I feeling is the question you want to ask yourself. And if you are, let's say, like you said, you have a little list that you've been working on and you don't get through it. If you're working on a list, or if you have a list like you typically do in a day, and around 10:15 or so, you look at this feeling that you're experiencing, and your feeling is going to be tied to whether you're making progress on that list, Paul. And a lot of times, a lot of us go down rabbit holes during the day because something catches our attention or some other thing that we're overwhelmed by causes us to be distracted and go work on that for a while, and nothing's getting done meanwhile.
Yes, that's exactly what happens.
Right. So at 10:15, you realize, hey, wait a minute. I'm not feeling how I want to feel. I'm feeling like discombobulated, overwhelmed again. I don't want to feel that. I want to feel focused. So you put aside whatever it was you were doing and you're back at your list again because you got about another hour and a half or so before lunchtime. After lunch, you're back working at things again. And about 2:30, you realize, okay, I just got a couple hours left. How am I feeling? Well, I worked for a while on that, but I got distracted again, damn it. So now I want to go back to, feeling how I want to feel today. I want to feel in control again. So, all right, I'm going to put aside whatever I got distracted by and go back to what I said I was going to get done today. And I may not get the whole list done, but I'm done with a lot of the first parts of what's on that list. And then at 7 o'clock, sometimes people are at home, but they're not really at home because they're still thinking about all that stuff that they were supposed to do during the day. And at home doesn't mean just at home like you've changed locations, but just like, okay, this is a little bit of downtime, personal time. I want to read a book. I want to listen to music. I want to watch my favorite show. I want to go for a walk, whatever it might be. That's your time or your family's time. And you're not able to have that time because you're still caught up with this overwhelmed feeling about all the stuff you didn't get done during the day. But if you do this for 2 weeks, you're going to learn a hell of a lot about the feelings you're having, and you're going to get more control over everything.
That sounds like a good approach, and I will definitely give that a try.
Don't give up on it. Make sure you try at least go for a week. If you don't see any outcomes in a week, then maybe you can stop then. But if you just do it for a couple of days, nothing's going to change. But over a week, you're going to find out you're really learning a whole bunch of stuff about yourself.
Okay. Sounds good. And besides that, what are other recommendations you have for you just trying to make, should we try to just not let these things that aren't getting done affect us? Just say, hey, it's okay. They'll be there tomorrow. Or how do you kind of move away from that feeling as well?
Best case basis, if you're any good at this, you lay out a project plan. Okay. You put things down into the spreadsheet or some kind. You don't need you don't have to be good at Excel. You can just lay it out. Okay, I'm going to work on this for the next couple of days. I've got this going on next week, and the following week I can take that on. Or maybe you break it up into different times in the day that you're working on different things, so you feel like you're making progress. That's part of it. Mentally seeing it on paper is also a strategy for, feeling like you. But if you ignore the paper and you get caught up in a rabbit hole, then all that doesn't matter. That's why the feelings part of this is so important. But you're asking for another strategy. I'd say that's an additional strategy that'll help.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I got the opportunity to speak with you today, Chuck. And thanks for the help. And I will catch you back at the new studio.
Thank you, and you let me know how you make out. By the way, I'll just share one other thing with you because there was a time I felt overwhelmed, and one of the people I worked with was a great boss. I was working at Exxon at the time. The fellow's name was Roy Williams, and he said to me, he asked me, I don't know if this works for you, but I'll share it with anybody who's listening who feels this way. He asked me, he said, Chuck, did you ever play baseball as a kid? And I said, yeah, I love baseball. I was pretty good at it and hoped to play for the Red Sox. And that never happened, but I really enjoyed baseball. He said, why? And he said, well, you ever have a bag of balls? And, you had a whole bunch of balls and you were told to go out there and practice and you knew you had like 100 balls in the bag or maybe 50 balls in the bag. And, you thought, oh my God, how many, how am I going to, you were told to throw one up and hit it in there and, until the bag was through. And I said, well, I had some things that were similar to that. He said, well, you know what, Chuck, you can only throw one up at a time. That's the way you want to think about this. Throw one up at a time. And that was really helpful to me. So maybe that's useful to you too.
Oh, it sounds like a good approach.
Okay, Paul. Well, nice to talk with you. And it gave me a chance to thank my old boss, Roy Williams, if he's out there listening somewhere. And good luck with it. I hope it helps.
Okay, Chuck. Thank you.
You bet. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay. Nice calls from Carla and Paul today. That was really nice. So I wanted to share this other story with you about somebody I was helping today. So this person I was helping, it's a person who was probably had moved into an organizational position she left one organization, joined another one, and got a big boost in responsibility and in pay and in grade level. And she's extremely talented and smart. But I don't know if you've ever been in a position where it's almost like you skipped a grade or something. You went from the 5th grade to the 7th grade and you missed the 6th grade. And it was great because it felt so great because you were so smart and everybody was applauding you for moving on. But you know what? You didn't have all the things that the other kids learned in 6th grade as part of your foundation. Well, that sort of happens in corporate life sometimes where somebody gets promoted at a level beyond where they can really be successful without a hell of a lot of help. Because they missed that foundational building part that came with the 1 or 2 interim positions before they got that vice president spot. So anyway, they didn't want to lose the person. They really liked the person. They thought she was great, and they wanted to work with her and keep her, but she was struggling because, she'd been moved into this spot too soon, really. And one of the things that she was thinking about was, her self-confidence she felt was kind of slipping, as you can imagine it would, because she always thought she was always successful at everything she did. And this was a shock that she wasn't, having the same kind of success right away in this new position. And she never really thought about a coach before. But anyway, they decided they'd hire a coach for her. And so they hired me and I got to work with her. And same thing I'm talking to all of you about, which is that, hey, feelings drive what happens in our life. I was actually, we were talking this morning and I thought, one of the ways I'm thinking about this is a lot of people I work with are like high performance cars. They're incredible at what they can do. And they're incredible. The ride feels great when they're working, and you just get in them and you drive, and you love driving because they're beautiful to look at. There's beautiful inside, and it just feels great when you're in them. But you ever stop and think about the engines, what's under the hood, not just the engines, but all the infrastructure that supports that car that makes it feel that way? Well, those are feelings inside all of us. I mean, that was the metaphor I had. I don't know if that works for you, but it worked for me and for her at the time. But anyway, she was telling me that, she's found herself really gaining some traction in her company and she feels great about it. And she's thrilled that she's got me as a coach, which is wonderful for me to hear. But she told me a story today that just, got a little teary-eyed. I mean, she did too. She was saying that, she and her father are really a lot alike and they sometimes bang heads because of that. And they love each other and they deeply care about one another, but sometimes they really have a hard time talking to each other. And they had a rough spot, I guess, about a month or 2 ago where they really had said some things that, not that they were unforgivable things, but, not nice. And it caused kind of a rift between them. And she decided that even though this was work related, which she was learning from me about this emotion roadmap, she thought maybe I can use this with my dad because I kept telling her these are life skills, not this, work skills. And wherever you use them, the more you use them, the better you get at doing this. And so use them everywhere. And so she thought, I'm going to try and think about how my dad's feeling, how I'm feeling, how I want my dad to feel, how I want to feel. And I'm going to try and talk to him. And this was just, I guess, yesterday. She said, we had a 3-hour conversation. It was the best conversation I've ever had with him in my life. And I can't tell you how thankful I am, because that roadmap made all the difference. So I'm encouraging all of you, as you heard Carla and you heard Paul as a regular listener, use this stuff. Don't just listen, hopefully, and be entertained. Use it. Make your life better. Make the lives of those around you better. I love that, Carla, you told me that your kids are listening to this show. I love that. Have your whole family listen and then talk about it. What do we need to say to each other? How are we going to say it to one another? How do we make life better for ourselves? Sometimes we really love one another and we can't get the words out. How do we get the words out? How do we let people know we care about them, we love them, we adore them? And not just say the words, but how do we support people in our lives that we really feel this way about and make that kind of a difference? Another quick story, because it's about families and work. The show's about really everything. But here's another one. I was asked to work with this person who was a guy who was challenging in a lot of ways. He really, really smart guy, and clearly brilliant in terms of many of the things he understands about his business that he owns, but somewhat challenging in the way he relates to other people. I didn't care that much about it, and it wasn't that important to him. But there were things happening where he was looking to maybe make a change. And he tried some other things, and they didn't work at all. And he was encouraged to work with me by somebody else that was sort of working with this company at the time, who had found me and thought I was the right person for this guy. And so we started working together. And one of the things he said, hey, you know what? I said, what do you want to work on? Where do you think you can use the help? He said, you know what I'd like? I'd like you to help me with my kids. He has some young children at home. And, interestingly, if you've listened to my show a lot, you may know this, that in my earliest part of my career, I was a counselor. I was a school counselor. I had done my internship in an elementary school in Brookline, Massachusetts. But when I first actually took my first full-time job after getting a master's degree in counseling, it was in Iowa, and it was in Dubuque, Iowa, actually, and I was the junior high school guidance counselor out there. But they had a very proactive counseling program, and most of you won't know what that means, because most of you, if you've had a counselor in junior high school, was somebody who was talking to you about what courses you want to take in this, when you get into high school, and maybe a little bit about college, but mostly about just making the transition to high school. So there wasn't much going on. But Iowa, and you may not think of Iowa, listening, many of you listen to me are on the East Coast, although we get worldwide listeners occasionally. But, the idea of Iowa is it's the Midwest. Well, what do they know? Well, actually, Iowa had the Iowa Test of Basic Skills. Iowa's always had a great education system, and they had one of the leading counseling programs where counselors didn't meet one-on-one. They met with kids in the classrooms. They try to give away their skills to teachers, to principals, to parents, and groups of kids at a time. It was a really, really proactive kind of program. And anyway, I had that experience of being the Iowa State's actual first elementary school counselor. So I worked with kids, kindergarten through grade 6. And kindergarten through grade 8. One was a public school and one was a parochial school, Holy Ghost and parochial school in Iowa. So it was title money, and the money was split between the parochial school and the public school. And it was an amazing program. I had a great experience with it. So I ended up doing family therapy for a number of years as a family therapist. So I had all these experiences. And I said, when he asked me, can I help him with his children? I said, sure. What I want to teach you is life skills. And we can, if that's what's important to you now, let's work there. And, I helped him with his family. I helped him with his children. And over time, he formed a bond with me. And I really like him a lot now. And he trusts me. And we are working on the things at work that he needs to work on. For the first time, he's allowing himself to be helped, because he asked me for help in an area that was important to him, and I was able to do it. So when you look at this stuff, folks, and you hear me talk about the emotion roadmap, and why it's important and why I'm on the air. It's because I think if I can help all of us to have more inner peace, then maybe the world can be a more peaceful place. Those are my big aspirations. So anyway, I'm hoping that you're listening and that you're enjoying the show and you're finding it helpful in whatever way in your life, whether it's at work or at home in your community or just internally for yourself. You're just feeling like you have more control of your own emotions, because emotionally planning how you want to feel is something I don't know. I mean, maybe people thought of this before, but I've never heard anybody talk about it before. So I hope that this is a new, innovative idea for you and that you're willing to try it and that it makes life better for you. Okay. I'm going to see if you want to call in again. I got a little bit of time left. It's 203-336-9756. Anything you'd like to share? I got about 5 minutes left. So give me a call. 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a minute. I have to say, this is I like the 2 phone calls were great, and so this is as my probably, I believe, last time in this studio. Thank you, folks, for making it special. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Carla. So again, if anybody wants to call, it's 203-336-9756. Okay. Since I don't see the phones lighting up, I'll tell you the last thing that I came to talk about today, and that is performance. When you're working and it feels like it's all, they sometimes call it a flow state, where everything you do just seems to be right. And then something changes, and all of a sudden it feels like nothing's right. You just you can't seem to make anything work. Well, you see that sometimes in sports, and again, regular listeners know I was born and brought up in Massachusetts, and as part of being a young boy growing up in Massachusetts, I became inundated and embraced the culture that supported the Red Sox and the Patriots and the Celtics and the Bruins. And now I guess they've got some pretty good soccer teams too, but I didn't grow up with them, and so I don't feel the same way about them. But I just wanted to say that, I've been watching the Red Sox, and they were supposed to be underperformers this year. They really didn't have much going on. They had a terrible year the year before. And then they had this experience where, they started off the season and it was horrible. The first week, it just looked like, oh, okay, this is going to be a terrible year too. And then afterwards, it took off, and they were in first place for a long time. And then they weren't. They were in that flow state where they just kept winning. And no matter who else was winning, they stayed in front. And then they weren't in front anymore. And now it's really interesting. For those of you who are regular listeners, you're probably a lot of Yankees fans too. So those of you who care about this, and you saw the Yankees were on an incredible roll. I think they won 13 in a row. They hadn't done that for I don't know how many years. But now they're losing too. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hi, Chuck. It's Carla.
Oh, hi, Carla. Thanks for calling back.
I just wanted to put some good wishes and bells on your process. And if you're taking time off, hopefully it's great. And for everyone, just practice yoga. It really helps.
Oh, okay. Well, that's another, there are lots of things out there that make a lot of people find inner peace, and yoga is one of them. It's something that my wife has found she really enjoys. And for me, actually, there's a number of things that, just in terms of that kind of thought process, Carla, I don't know. I know sometimes I've talked to people when I was a college professor, and I was talking to students who came from Bridgeport. They didn't want to hear about walking in the woods. They said, no, there were bears and there were wolves and coyotes. Okay, I don't want to walk in the woods. That's not peaceful at all. But for me, it's one of those things that I really enjoy. I really like, I happen to live in Simsbury, and there's a lot of surrounding areas where there's really nice places to go walking. And so that's another way, or going for a swim, or just something, or putting headphones on and listen to your favorite music is another way.
Yes. So I have to tell you quickly that I called you one time, and you had you told me about your mother visiting you in the window sometimes as a
Yeah,
bluebird.
right.
And someone called in and said that a red-tailed hawk had come.
Right, I remember that too.
And
Yeah.
so watching the birds is a very, very awesome thing to do during these times.
Isn't that interesting that you bring that up? But let me just say this, a couple things about that. First of all, I'm Jewish, and it's Rosh Hashanah. This is the second day. I celebrated on the
Yes.
first day. And so to all my Jewish friends out there or listeners, Happy New Year to everybody.
Oh,
But one of those things that, around this time, you actually go see grave sites. And I hadn't done it in a number of years, but I saw my mom's gravesite just a couple of days ago. So it's funny that you bring that up, isn't it?
oh, that's so beautiful. And what a beautiful tradition.
Yeah, it really is nice. And thanks for reminding me about that. Yeah, I don't have time to tell the story today, but that's a neat story. And I got to tell you, after visiting the grave sites and not being there for a while, there was a couple of things that happened. And I won't go into them because we have automated software now that just shuts off the show when it's over. So I got about 50 seconds. But anyway, what happens is it seemed like sometimes you see things that seem symbolic or signs somehow that maybe there is something going on as far as an afterlife, and maybe because you visited that there's some way that they channeled some kind of communication. And while as crazy as that sounds to some people who don't believe in an afterlife, I just look at an afterlife this way. I just, when I ask people, do you believe in an afterlife or not? Some do, some don't. And I just saw, and if they ask me, I just say, well, look, I see no upside in believing there isn't one. So, so as far as I'm concerned, since nobody really knows, I'm choosing that I think there is one. And if I'm right, I'll know it and I'll be thankful. And if I'm wrong, I'll never know it. So,
that's so beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful.
And I have to go, Carla.
Bye.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.